Hey there, it's Lynn, day 3 of my 22 Push-Up Challenge 2.0. Nice to see everybody again. Thanks for the support. Thanks for watching. As I'd mentioned yesterday, we're going to pick up and talk a little bit today about MST from the male perspective. I did a little bit of research and still could not find a better article on male MST than one I had already posted from GQ. And so I reposted that on Facebook. And it is an article that is really worth taking a look at. It talks, the authors talk with a number of men from the military, various years in the military, various forces, what Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines type thing. And give, the article talks with these men and gives a really great perspective of what they go through from what happens in assaults in the military. As with sexual assault outside of the military, the penis is not always the object of penetration. Oftentimes, objects such as broom handles, toilet brushes are used to rape the individual. In the military, the men often talked about being assaulted by a number of men, so gang rape seems to be a more common thing that happens. Rape between varying ranks in the forces as well is an issue that is problematic on multiple levels. Some really obvious, some not. So this article is extremely good, and it is very, very all-encompassing and worth looking at. Not only does it delve into what these men have gone through with their assaults, but also in terms of what they went through, those who chose to report their assaults and how they were treated. For example, the title of the article, "Son, Men Don't Get Raped," is something a physician said to a male rape victim who went to see him after he was assaulted. And I am almost speechless at that type of reaction to anyone who would go to a medical professional, particularly myself as a nurse. Anyone who would go to a professional to discuss something so horrible, devastating, and affecting their mental and physical and social well-being would be met with that kind of response just really sickens me. And that is the tip of the iceberg. Another response from a physician, someone reported, was, "You liked it. Come on. Tell me. You liked it. You really liked it." Another disgusting re-assault of the victim with that kind of reaction, that kind of response. Absolutely unprofessional and not just unhelpful, but damaging. Okay, so again, this is the tip of the iceberg. Often male military sexual assault does go unreported. People fear retaliation. They fear loss of their jobs. They fear being misdiagnosed with a personality disorder so that the military can discharge them without having to provide medical treatment. So there are a lot of factors to consider in terms of MST, and particularly male MST, and the problems that we face in terms of providing the type of resources that our veterans need in order to acknowledge, address, and feel supported in dealing with such a horrific experience. Male sexual assault as well, it is worth mentioning, is, well, sexual assault more often tends to occur, I think, with women. Because there are more men in the military, male sexual assault, at least in the U.S., is more prevalent. And the article that I've posted cited that in 2012 alone, there were 14,000 reported cases of male sexual assault. That is a huge number. Many cases do go unreported. The article cites a statistic. I forget where it's from, probably directly from the VA, but apparently 81% of the male MST cases go unreported. And of those reported that go to court, there is only a 7% conviction rate. Often, these victims of sexual assault have to go and work with or under their perpetrators again. The more I read that article, the more and more horrified I became at what our veterans, anybody, but particularly our veterans, have to face in terms of military sexual assault. The situation that they are already in, the lack of support and acknowledgement, and the fear, the very real fear of retaliation for talking to anyone about being assaulted. And then layer on top of that having to be deployed. Potentially, I think I mentioned yesterday, with people who have sexually assaulted you. How do you find trust? How do you do your job and feel secure in your ability to do your job when in this hyper-masculine culture you have been effeminized? How do you do that? Especially with quite often absolutely nowhere to go to even say, oh my God, this happened to me. If you have a look at the article, and I really urge you to look at that article, I think you'll realize that that men did not, the men involved did not expect this. They expected, when they ended up in situations where they were assaulted, it was often situations where people would get together, there would be camaraderie, or perhaps they were invited to a senior's home. Occasionally that happens. So situations that look normal on the outside and are absolutely not normal. This is a huge, huge issue. And it is so big that I think I'm going to do a little bit more digging and a little bit more thinking. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about male military sexual trauma tomorrow as well. It is worthy to note as well, or to really bring the point home, that it is a hyper-masculine culture. So that makes dealing, or even just acknowledging sexual assault that happens male on male, even that much more difficult. It is also worth noting that there is a myth going around that the perpetrators of sexual assault in the military are gay, and that is absolutely a myth. It is not true at all. Again, as I started this discussion, I perhaps would like to end by saying sexual assault is not about sex. It is about power, it is about control, and it is about ownership. The individual owning you at a very guttural, primal level, and not about sex at all. This is a power dynamic, and it is one that is really dysfunctional, to say the very least. So definitely male MST is something we need to keep on our radars. All MST, of course, but given that the military is predominantly men and there are less resources for men than there are for women in terms of sexual assault, therapy, support systems, this kind of thing, and often a lack of belief. And I think a lot of women, perhaps from my generation or the generation beforehand, would really understand the devastating impact of not being believed and being treated like you were looking for it. Yeah, when we're talking about male MST, it's like we're talking about sexual assault in the 50s, maybe. That's kind of where it's at in terms of what a lot of people think is a serious problem and what is not, what needs to be dealt with and what does not. One final thing before I do my push-ups. I apologize for the length of this, but this is a really big, important topic. One final thing to mention to you is that the military, with their sexual assault response training, are still doing victim-oriented training as well. So what that means is in the U.S. anyhow. I'm not quite sure what Canada is doing, but what that means is they talk to the victims about behaviors to avoid so you don't get sexually assaulted. And I think that in the mainstream, i.e. outside of the military, there's been a lot of research, studies, statistics, a lot of work that has shown that really is not helpful. As a matter of fact, that can be quite harmful. And so if you keep that in mind and have a look at that article, I think that you would see where the idea that there was something, the victim could have done to avoid the assault, where damage has grown out of that. And so, yeah, really worth looking at and remembering that in terms of male MST, we are decades into the past in terms of acknowledgement and support and therapy. Okay, so that's my blurb for today. Tomorrow, we'll talk about more. I'm going to do my 22 push-ups. Apologies for my teeny tiny space here, but it's raining outside. There's not a lot of space in my house these days. I'm going to do my best to do my 22 push-ups all in a row. Let's see what happens tonight. Okay, here we go. Okay, I think that was 22. Thanks everyone for watching. Again, apologies for the length of the video, but this is a really serious topic and one that many combat vets deal with by themselves. And that's not right, and it's not helpful, and it's not healthy. So let's make sure we keep this conversation going, that we protect the protectors, that we love our veterans, and that we let people openly know that sexual assault is never, ever okay. Thanks a lot for watching. See you tomorrow.